Hello, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Let's play chess. We noticed here, yesterday I played my 20th thousandth game of chess. This game right here against Fratello. It turned out to be a very fine game. We're sort of tied with the 20,000, and in just a moment or two, we're gonna break into the 20,000s of whatever of games on chess.com. I played games elsewhere, but um, yeah, as for chess.com, this is our 20,000 and first chess game. So let's make it a longer game, a rapid game of 10 minutes per side per game rather than a blitz game. Okay. All right, not a good game. Good thing the 20,000th game was a good game because this game was not. All right. Break the tie, maybe. Okay. So we played 2 games so far today against the same opponent. I lost to this opening trap. I'm opening this up because I've lost to this opening trap in the past, and we're going to figure out how I can avoid doing so in the future. The game that followed was very accurate. I'm glad to see that. Some of the other things are looking good. The late break, that's also moves in the direction of indicating a quality game. The game was even, or just about, not perfectly even, but just about even, all the way through the first 20 moves. This is the trap that has caught me before. So let's take a look at it. We're in the Scotch game. And bishop c4 still booked, so it's bishop e7, c3, and then I captured. Yeah, I should know better. That seeing c3, seeing white play c3 this early in a game like this, that pawn takes c3 can't be the best move. And the reason why is queen d5 shortly thereafter. So let's knight a5. I like that. It breaks up this battery on the a2 g8 diagonal before it begins. Alright, we're going to break up this battery of the queen and the bishop on this diagonal before it has a chance to even begin. And I'm going to play a few moves on this against practice. So we have black to move. The pawn is not the deal. So I thought here, oh, I'll get my extra pawn. I'll liquidate with a clear advantage of one pawn. I'll be behind in development, but somehow I'll find a way to castle soon enough. That didn't work out. And it doesn't work out for the very reason each and every time of queen d5. I'm not sure that that's what my opponent played. Yeah, queen d5, and black's not doing very well here. So instead we're going to play the computer suggested move. Probably the best move here is knight a5. Alright, so my opponent wants to keep his bishop. The computer, my opponent wants to keep his bishop on the board. That's fine. Now perhaps d takes c3. Yes, okay. What I want to do is send this into one of my, here we go, add game to collection. We have this 6.5 moves, and where should this go? We kind of reviewed it live on Twitch, but that wasn't really the point. Well, it was the point, but teaching positions. Really should be learning positions. For me, I'm trying to make openings. That'll do it. Alright, so the next game And you can see here on the first game, though, uh, black is destroyed quickly. On the next game, at the white pieces. Um, Grabbing the center in a very direct way. I thought bishop b4 is a strong move, pinning the knight against the protection of the e4 pawn, while also developing the bishop to an active square. So I thought bishop b4 was good here. Bishop d3. Some, I would say, developing moves, but not our normal developing moves. Think about all these moves. Okay, so the knight's at c3, that's normal. The bishop at d3 can be normal, but it's a little bit abnormal in this way that he's blocked early on. The knight at g1 usually goes to f3, but instead he's traveled to e2. As for black, a bishop as aggressive as b4 is not common nor uncommon. We see this in the Spanish four knights and in some queen's pawn openings. But I'd say he's slightly less than slightly weirder than normal here on b4, pinning the knight. Again, like I played knight to e2. My opponent played knight to e7. Is also not the most usual square for the king's knight to develop. Is not the most usual square to which the king's knight would develop. Usually, for black it would be, of course, f6, and for white, f3. And to fianchetto the queenside bishop. So I'm looking at this. Look, all these pieces are kind of developed in a good way. These are good developing squares, but just also a little unusual, a little bit different. Kingside castles and bishop to g5 is mostly to provoke. I'm trying to provoke a weakness in black's kingside pawn structure. I'm not going to get this knight. I know that. I mean, he's going to be pinned for a move or so, but that's how you get to the point of f6, perhaps, and then weakening the kingside pawn structure. As you use the pin so that black has an excuse to make this weakening move. Black made that weakening move. It's still the best move, but I'm glad that now there's a little more air around black's king. We'll see if that comes in handy later or not. I don't happen to recall. Like many chess players recall their games. Maybe giving away a little bit too much info, George. Yeah, so then the bishop is chased back to a rather awesome square on the h2 b8 diagonal, and bishop takes c3. I don't like that from black's standpoint. This is not a great move because I replace it with the same piece. The knight just replaces the knight, and black has lost a strong pin that was helping in the center. So I'm critical of bishop takes c3 here. I could take back with the knight, and maybe the point is what we see here. There's something wrong with knight c3. We'll take a look into the analysis window to see how Torch feels about this. F5 could evidence some kind of advantage for black. I'm not so sure about that. And yes, then the move would be b takes c3, which strengthens the center, frees the knight from his assignment of babysitting d4 for a while. Uh, then maybe these pawns aren't so bad. The problem with b takes c3 is the pawns are bad. They look like pawns that these look like pawns that aren't that bad because I could play c5 and then have this zigzag pattern. Except black's b6 pawn will just make that doubled pawns with a space in between. They're horribly weak. So I'm back to knight takes c3 personally. Some of these inaccuracies, I'm not sure if knight d7 is really that much of an inaccuracy. Torch wants an immediate. Torch 4 wants to immediately rip open the center. So anyway, my opponent did make action in the center on the very next move, and I thought it was best to create a closed center. This type of closed center works well against the bishop, and so therefore it works well. It's not as good as having the bishop's own color blocking the movement, but this is not a bad stopgap against black's light squared bishop. Some trades. They're really just a lot of this is business as usual. I like to point out that this knight is a monster, a total trump for black's position. I might have been fine to protect it, and then maybe black would, take off the bishop in exchange. But no, my own knight is going to have to eventually. I don't really know how. My own knight is going to eventually have to take that knight off somehow. Here. This knight is very, very strong for black. On the other hand, bishop e2 is a better move than it might seem, because the bishop is now completely controlling all the aggressive moves of that knight on e5. Bishop has it covered. H4 is sort of like, what else should I do? And perhaps there were stronger moves with rook. But really, if I given the position again, I might play rook to f2 and then double on the f file. But I played h4 and it wasn't a bad move. I'm looking to try to hurry or harass or pressure the knight on g4 in attempts to establish some sort of kingside attack. And my opponent offers his queen here. I'm glad for that, because now I can focus on removing the knight from e5. I was on my way towards doing that when the blunder bishop to a6 occurred. And good for me, I spotted the blunder, got a pawn along the way, then made all these trades in correct fashion, and I now have the exchange ahead of black. And some picking off of pawns, mostly in correct fashion. Black doesn't want to isolate his king to the h file, or else, on king takes h5, rook takes g7, then white has so much control over whether or not black is allowed off the h file that's scary. So I like the move my opponent played, king to h6, keeping protection over the g7 square and the pawn on g7, and not getting overly ambitious with capturing on h5. So that was a good move. I thought that was strong. But I thought I'd try to make it backfire for black by playing g4, and now the h5 pawn is protected. So there's a little bit of trouble if black goes to g5, then rook takes g5 check, and it's turning into a disaster. And white is going to pick up some pawns, and I see that black has kind of committed himself to trying to queen first, but that is just not in the cards. And then in the resignation here on move 42. We're gonna finish this game out against computer. Against the computer. Okay, so that was just a little bit of dust up there. The analysis will show slightly increased accuracy. Great game. All right, let's move to game in 5 minutes per game per side. We'll move to 5 minutes per game per side. Call you back in a couple minutes.
Sure.
Bye. All right, Jord. One of my great games. This blunder maybe, but not so bad really. I'm usually playing knight f3 before that. I don't know. Yeah, I'm supposed to play knight f3. Anyway, aside from this, just a bad blunder that falls into a trap. Not even a trap, just best move for black is queen h4 check. And that didn't happen. My opponent played d takes e5, and so now I'm sort of weaseled my way into a fair game here, and that's good. I took almost a minute on move to decide on move 8, and eventually realized, yes, indeed, the bishop sacrifice on f7 is correct. My opponent probably was best to, well, Torch says not to. The problem with capturing on f7 is knight takes d4 check, and once the king moves, queen takes g4, and then even if e takes d4, white's really rolling. So let's go through this. Let's try this against the computer. I'll probably get beat because it's only a 2.2 advantage on the progress bar, but let's see if we can. Yeah, so the computer played the better move. But we're actually going to force its hand, so this is not at the hands of maximum. But king takes f7 is not good because I capture, and then I'm going to capture here. I'm ahead in some material, also just extreme pressure on the knight. Black's king is scrambling. Development in an aggressive way is available for white's dark squared bishop, and the knight can move to connect the rooks. This position is favorable to white. My opponent chose king d7. I found the correct response. I'm not sure, is this the only correct response? We're going to widen our number of lines here to 4, I guess. And did white have a better response than knight e5? No. And not only that, but there's quite a bit of difference, 2.6 on the progress bar. So I'm glad that I found the best move. Bishop takes e5, and with queen takes g4, white has 2 extra points of material. Black's king is scrambling. Black has a good advantage on the clock. White has a better amount of space and utilization of space, including mobility. White has better mobility on this chessboard. King safety, it's not even close. And white has the initiative here. Definitely, this is sometimes we talk about the initiative doesn't always mean that much, or space doesn't always mean that much. Well, here, initiative means a lot. White has a strong initiative. Did I choose to utilize it correctly? Yes. Uh, Bishop to d5, and we are going to pepper Black's king, make a pin here, with the knight being pinned to d4, and I can play c3 to capture the piece and thereby be up more material and in a big way. So White's lead in initiative is strong, quite strong. The board just kind of collapses around Black here, and this particular continuation simplifies into a game where White has enough material to pull through in the end game. I'm gonna finish this game mostly because it takes like the pressure off. You know, you're playing another human being in chess, and it's like, gee, man, does it get any crazier? Well, sometimes you play the computer, and it's not as intimidating. Let's see if I can get a trade of rooks here at the cost of a pawn. I do, and White is rolling. Okay, now we'll go here. I gotta unmute my mic. Ah! Well, here it is, unmuted. Uh, I was making comments about endgame knight and pawn positions. They'll come across again. Or here, I'll just say, no, you know what? It's fine. It's fine. All right. All right. Thank you all for watching. Thank you, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Have a great night.